It's not, I go out and it's like, oops, big for
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I'm putting
again.
an outside voice on and
As
really
a,
kicking you guys along.
they sure did. Okay.
Uh,
They,
welcome.
and so
It's good to
then
be here.
on,
This is difficult.
It
It's good
is.
to be
We can
here.
wait.
October 14th,
We can wait if you want,
I
Mike. It's
had to
fine.
email Ed Hosa and Darby stating yet again.
Maybe if I lower this and I just talk. There you go. That'll do it. So I don't get it.
I'm sitting here in my queue,
Okay.
bawling my eyes out.
Hello,
And
everybody.
I'm asking you for help.
It's good to be here.
Please
Hey,
help.
Brendan. Good to see everybody. It's great to be part of the Bucks County Crimes Against Elders Task Force. And to be part of the Neff Symposium. I think I'm one of the few people around Kathy from the very beginning of when we started this years and years ago. And I'm very happy to see it turn into what it's turned into today, to reach out to everybody out there that has a stake with senior citizens. The one thing that I learned when I was here, because I primarily, for those who don't know, I'm the Consumer Protection Director. I'm sorry, Mike Bannon. I'm the Bucks County Consumer Protection Director, and my role on the task force is to kind of deal with scams and problems that a lot of seniors have. But we're kind of the center for these type of problems, whether it's a purchasing problem or any kind of warranty issue. Our office is involved in that. When I got involved with the Neff Symposium as the Consumer Protection Director when we were first starting it up, I will say I was absolutely shocked because I had never been part of the social services scenes with senior citizens to see the terrible neglect, abuse, and those other things that I don't deal with. I see physical, or I see financial abuse, but I hadn't seen up until I got here the physical part of it and all the other very tough things that are attached to it. So I applaud everybody out there that's in social work or in this field, because it really is painful to see folks have problems, maybe get in trouble with scam artists by sending money, or being involved with somebody that's actually financially a family member that may be taking abuse onto the senior citizens by stealing money. Now, we've seen lots of cases through my office that we kind of have received complaints that have put issues on the radar. And when we see things that I think are a crime, I would contact the district attorney's office, maybe AJ Garabedian, or any of the other district attorney folks, to talk about the senior-related scam that we're having. So this network of the task force has really worked well. We've pulled together all different agencies to network, and I think it's pretty unique to Pennsylvania. I mean, certainly when we started this up, it was new and one of a kind. I think we were leaders, and now we see a couple of these organizations pop up throughout Pennsylvania, but I'm always very proud of what we've done here in Bucks County and that we're still going at it. I want people out there that are working with seniors to know that the role of the Bucks County Consumer Protection Department really is pretty wide. You can call us for any reason at all, and we may know what direction to go into, what organization can help you if it's not a consumer protection related problem. So we have a big net over the county. We know a lot of folks, and so our role is to kind of keep things moving and get folks to the right place. We do see, and certainly I deal with a lot of seniors when it comes to scams. And I know a lot of caretakers out there have had victims of scams, and it really is brutal what's happening with the scams, telephone calls, email scams, grandparent scams, targeting seniors that are overwhelmed by these things sometimes when they are abused or taken over by this stuff. So what we want to do and what we try to do is get out ahead of this and try to educate about scams when we can. We've got some great booklets here. Let's see, I don't know where I am. Okay, let's see. Some great booklets here, or if you can see, that are free online, that about scams, a guide for recognizing scams. It's great to get it to senior citizens, this type of stuff, just to leaving it laying around if they're perhaps a possible victim or could be a victim. It educates them on how to try to avoid those scams. We also deal sometimes with the financial literacy. I'm sorry if I can't see my picture here, but we have some great brochure financial literacy, very basic stuff for seniors. So we want to reach out to folks. We want to be a resource for everybody that's watching today. We want to be a resource for senior citizens in the Consumer Protection Department. The network that we have here with our task force, I'm very proud of, and I think it's a big success. And I encourage everybody out there that any caseworker, home health aide that has a question to call our Bucks County Consumer Protection Office, and we'll certainly try to clear it up or make things right as best we can for the seniors. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm sorry, I put my volume off.
Hey, Mike, did you give everybody your phone number? Or do you want to put it? You want to put it?
I certainly will. I'll put it in the chat, but it's 1-800-942-2669 is the best number to call.
Great.
And I'll also put it in the chat.
Very much. AJ.
Thank you.
Sure. AJ, I'm going to go to you next. AJ is works for the District Attorney's Office. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also what you do and how you work with the task force?
Sure, Kathy. So I'm AJ Garabedian. I'm a district attorney with the Bucks County DA's office. I've been employed with the DA's office for about 12 years. I'm a member of the Elder Abuse Task Force. We work closely with all the representatives of the entities that you see here today. Our office has about 45 attorneys and about 25 detectives. And I specifically focus on the financial exploitation of the elderly residents in Bucks County. Kate Kohler, who's also an attorney with our office, is our liaison for physical and sexual abuse of elderly individuals. And our job is basically to prosecute crimes against the elderly. Basically, the way the case progresses is that there's a referral made to the local police departments in your jurisdiction, wherever the victim may be living, or in some cases where the defendant or the perpetrator may be living. The police departments or our county detectives conduct the investigation, and then it's referred to our office to prosecute. And as Mike said, we work closely with Consumer Protection and many of the other agencies, including NOVA, who Sandy Carvin is here today, who will help victims through the process of the criminal prosecution. So that's a little bit, what we do, and I'm happy once we introduce everybody to take any questions that you may have.
Thanks, AJ. Appreciate that. Next, I'm going to go to Dave, and after Dave, I'm going to Sandy, just so you know that you can sort of get ready. So, Mr. Degnan with the big pencil, can you explain who you are, what services you provide, and how you work with the coalition?
Thanks, Kathy. It's great to be here. It's great to hear this quiet background. Good job, Mike. You took one for the team there. So yes, my name is David Degnan. I'm an assistant U.S. attorney at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Philadelphia, which is part of the Federal Department of Justice. And I've been at the office for 13 years. And one of the hats that I wear there is I serve as our Elder Justice Coordinator. And I was really happy to be able to speak to everybody today. Because, a lot of people don't think about, federal law enforcement as being a big sort of player in the area of elder justice. And really we're very active. One of the reasons it's a little less visible is that a lot of our work is done on the civil side, which is what I'm in the civil division of our office. And what we do is we use federal fraud statutes to pursue elder justice initiatives. And so the primary example of that would be our nursing home initiative, which was started through the Department of Justice several years ago, and it's been a priority and a focus of our office and around the country look into and investigate nursing homes for not just traditional fraud where they're billing for services that weren't provided, but also for what are really cases of gross neglect.
All right, cool. Well, there you go. So thank you very much once again. You're very helpful.
Residents by neglecting them when it comes to wound care or medication or weight loss or falls or any manner of things that everybody in this audience is very familiar with. And so we go in, we use our fraud statute. We say, look, you're billing Medicare, you're billing Medicaid. You are supposed to be providing services for these individuals, and you've totally failed. And so, while on the one hand, a fraud statute is primarily a mechanism for recovering money, shouldn't have been paid. What we really view it as a way to, get structural changes made in nursing homes and nursing home treatment. I just want to kind of put it out there that we are out there. We're very interested in nursing homes, also personal care homes. I don't know how familiar everyone is with personal care homes, but they provide shelter, meals, assistance with personal care and personal tasks. They're less heavily regulated, I would say, than nursing homes. I mean, they are regulated.
Excuse me, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask again. Everybody, can you mute yourselves, please, and turn off your videos if you're not presenting? Adam Greenstein, can you please turn off your mic?
I'm giving it a shot.
In the right-hand corner, there's a little mic of your screen. There's a little mic, if you can see that.
I got him, Kathy.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
David.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, David.
I've learned how to project from Mike. So personal care homes, the way in which we get involved with personal care homes is important to understand because it comes up in other circumstances. And that is in a personal care home where we get in and investigate personal care homes, it's usually because the person running the personal care home has become the representative payee for an individual's Social Security benefits, for example. So we consider that basically benefits fraud. Again, you're supposed to be providing a service, and you are taking these federal benefits from these individuals, and then in turn neglecting or otherwise, in some cases actually abusing some of these individuals. And so we use that, those federal statutes, both criminal and civil fraud statutes, to get in there and to make sure that, we can address some of these bigger issues. Mike mentioned sort of his what's really in his wheelhouse, the telephone scams, the romance scams, the charity scams, all of these things. And that is something that we look at on the federal side too. We do, we have criminal statutes which apply, and a lot of people will say, well, I hear that in order for the federal, say, fraud statute to apply, you have to cross state lines or anything like that. But the reality is that anytime anybody uses the phone or the mail or the internet to perpetrate one of these schemes, there is probably a federal hook over those cases, and there's probably potential criminal liability on the federal side. And I can't think of any of these scams that don't use one of those three things, and I'm sure everybody is pretty familiar with that. And similarly, the last thing I'll say is that a recent initiative that we've been focusing on, and this is a bit more on the criminal side, but it's called the Money Mule Initiative, and it's related to all those telephone and mail scams, the romance scams, the charity scams. Basically, we have unwitting, usually seniors, who are basically used to move money, and it basically has the effect of laundering money either directly or indirectly from victims and sending it directly or indirectly to perpetrators. So we've been able to get in and at least prevent, once we learn about this happening to unwitting seniors, we just get in and we're able to stop the transfer of the money. And obviously we don't, I can't remember a case where we've actually prosecuted a senior for their unwitting involvement, but we do try to get in there and make them aware of these schemes and So this is kind of one of our more recent initiatives is the Money Mule initiative. So again, like AJ, welcome any questions, and really glad to be here.
Thanks, Dave. You're right, we don't often think of the federal response to things, so appreciate not only you being here today, but being part of our task force. It's really been helpful, so thank you.
Oh,
Next
Kathy,
up.
I'm sorry, I just want to ask a question, Kathy. Will we be able to will you be sharing printed materials with participants later? Is there any way to do that? Because I do have contact information, and we have some websites with resources that would be useful, and I'm curious, I'm happy to share those, however would be easiest.
Not that I'm aware of. The only thing I can think of is at this point, if you put in chat like your contact information,
okay,
or links to stuff, that would work too.
Sure.
And by the way, folks, we'll be taking questions via chat. So if you're, again, that's up in the right-hand corner of, once you put your cursor up near the top, it should come down. Just make sure that you hit that you're chatting to everyone, and then we'll get to your questions when we're done after each of the speakers have spoken. So next is Sandy Carvin. Sandy is a victim advocate with a network of victim assistants who, like the others, is a very important partner and in assisting us. So Miss Sandy, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. So like Kathy said, I am a victim advocate with NOVA. I've been here for 10 years and on the task force for 10 years. And what we at NOVA do with the task force is provide services to victims of crime, both those that have been a victim of financial exploitation or physical or sexual assault. Some of the services that we do provide at NOVA are counseling services. So that would be short-term counseling that's trauma-focused to help a victim of crime better understand the trauma that they have experienced and ways to cope with that. We have individual counseling groups, EMDR, and trauma-focused yoga groups, which have become very popular lately as the yoga groups. We also have advocacy services. So as an advocate, we will go to court with victims of crime, help them. We follow them through the entire criminal justice process, from making that police report to going to police and DA interviews with them, all the way down through sentencing. We also will assist them with victims' compensation claims. So in Pennsylvania, there's a program that victims can apply for some out-of-pocket expenses that they may have incurred due to a crime. And some of those expenses are medical bills, counseling expenses, stolen benefit cash for some of the scams. So if they are eligible for these reimbursement, if they're eligible for the reimbursement, we will help them apply for that through the state. And then we also help victims with their victim impact statements. So a victim impact statement is given to the judge at the time of sentencing, and this allows that victim to express to the judge how this crime has affected them and what they would like to see happen. And so we can help a victim prepare that statement and submit that to the court. And I know Kathy after the keynote speaker had talked about the Special Victims Investigation Program. So part of NOVA is also the Children's Advocacy Center, where we do forensic interviews of children and that may have been a victim or witness of a crime. And the Advocacy Center also does the interviews for the Special Victims Investigation Program for older adults and adults that have cognitive and diminished cognitive abilities or physical disabilities that require them to have special accommodations. So we do those interviews at NOVA, and we also do the SANE program. So we run that program, which is the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program for victims that have experienced a sexual assault. They can have a medical forensic exam done at any area hospital in Bucks County, and a nurse will come out to do that exam. We also have a 24-hour hotline that victims can call for support and any information or resources. And that number is 1-800-675-6900. And I will put that in chat. And all of our services are free of charge. So I probably talked really fast, but there you go.
No, you got it. As some of you know, I used to work at NOVA prior to coming to the Area Agency on Aging. I was there for 21 years. I started when I was 10. And so I'm like, ticking off in my head as you're talking. I'm like, oh, she got that. Oh, yeah, she got that too. So you got it all, girlfriend. That was very good. So thank you. Appreciate it. And if you could put not only the phone number in chat, but also the website for NOVA, because some folks are asking about some of the resources and stuff you're talking about, that would be really great. So thank you, Sandy. Next, we're going to have Brendan Corballis, Brendan is from Senior Law. And then after that, Linda, you're up on deck next after that. So just giving you all a heads up. Go ahead, Mr. Brendan.
Thank you, Kathy. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. I'm very happy to be here. I am honored to be a part of this. I represent Senior Law Center, which is the largest and oldest nonprofit direct legal service organization focused entirely on people 60 and older. We've been in Philadelphia for 40 years. We had the great good fortune under the Victims of Crime Act to receive large amounts of funding, which has enabled us to bring our victim service program to the outer counties, Bucks, Delaware, Chester, and Montgomery. I am the attorney who does the civil litigation here in Bucks County, and I'm also the assistant director of the program for all 5 counties, including Philadelphia. Again, I'm very honored to be a part of this task force, and I'm very happy to contribute in any way I can to the great work that they do here. Kathy's leadership has been inspiring, and I would like to also mention Holly, who's done an amazing job putting this together.
Check's in the mail, Brendan. Thank you.
Yeah, it's in the mail, right?
Okay.
Just get the ferret. But so what we do is similar, sort of on the local level or state level to what David was describing in terms of civil litigation. We're the counterpart for victims of crime, trying to access justice and some sort of remedy through the civil process. Specifically, we deal with protection from abuse. That's I'm in court practically every week with that, several cases a week, and I work closely with LAST, also with Neff, agencies here. We also have very similar to what Sandy was talking about, who help our clients go through that process.
What would the gauge be here? Okay. So for the influenza, this is what you use.
Have litigation going on in the civil trial division as well as in the Orphans Court. If you want to stop by, or if you're going to be at our presentation later this afternoon, I'll talk in depth about that. Our mission is to empower older adults. So always, of course, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We try to educate and reach out to folks. The thing I would leave you with today on this panel is something I'll talk more about in depth in the afternoon, but that what we see every day is that elder abuse is not something that's over there, right here. 2/3 of perpetrators are family members. So yes, we have the scandals and the swindles and the scams on the phone. Those are very real and very crushing for people. But what we're seeing every single day is family members, adult children, adult grandchildren who are physically, sexually, emotionally, and financially abusing their parents or older relatives. It's heartbreaking and it's real, and I just know that this was founded in memory of Mr. Neff. And hats off to you all for doing that. I'm a Bucks County resident, but I've always practiced in Philadelphia. I thank you for the warm welcome. I'll put my local information in the chat, and I'm happy to speak to anybody here or at a later point about anything regarding elder abuse and what possible remedies we can find in the civil law. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Appreciate it very much. Next is Linda Bobrin. Linda is with our Register of Wills and Orphans Court. And after Linda will be Karen Tinney, who's from our Area Agency on Aging. So, Miss Linda, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I had a scare there that my mic was on too soon, but I don't think it was me. So
You're good.
Whew, scary. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. So as Kathy said, I'm the Register of Wills and Clerk of Orphans Court. I'm kind of wearing 2 hats here. So as Clerk of Orphans Court, we take the documents from people who are going to court. We're the conduit for people. A lot of what we would do in this capacity would be for incapacitated people, people who might need a guardian. So we're the conduit. Your petition comes through us, and we help you get to the judges. As quickly, hopefully, and as efficiently as possible, we help you get there. And the bulk of the discussion today is protecting the health and safety of the elderly, protecting the finances of the elderly, protecting them from predators and criminals. In our office, we kind of focus on protecting the assets of those same people, but more in the future, protecting the wishes of the people as to where their possessions, their assets will go after they pass on, and how to make those wishes known to their family and their friends. We're focused on reminding people to prepare a will, a valid will, to write down what they have, write down where they want those things to go in the future after they're gone. And it's important to make sure people understand, certainly they need to understand what they have and where they want it to go. And we try to impress upon people it's equally as important that they tell someone what they have, where they want it to go, that they write those things down, and that they tell someone that they wrote those things down, and that they wrote it in a will, and where those wills are, so that their family knows that that's done and where to find it after they're gone. Lots of people like to write those things down, maybe have a will, but not tell anybody that they have a will. We often get a phone call from a family member that says, my mom passed away. Do you have the will? And we just have to tell them, no, we don't keep those for you. Unfortunately, mom doesn't call us with that. So that's a problem. I had a call recently from a young lady who was looking through a bunch of documents and saying, it's titled this, is this the will? And I just, had to explain to her, we don't do that here, unfortunately. So it's really important that you talk to your loved ones and explain to them that it's important that they write down what they have and where they want it to go, and tell you where they put that document. The wills don't have to be complicated. It just has to say what you have and where you want it to go. But it is important that it be signed at the end and that it be witnessed. And be careful of internet wills. A lot of people like to download things from the internet. They're not always so great. They're not always valid, and they're not always going to be able to be upheld. So be wary of that. You might need a lawyer, you might not. But it's sometimes helpful to have a lawyer, especially if it's a little more complicated, what you have and what you want to do with it. All types of wills can be valid. We see all types of things come through our office. We have wills on napkins. We have wills on candy wrappers. We've seen stories of wills that have been carved into trees and on tables, and they have been upheld as valid. You never know what's going to come in. So I wouldn't say it's not valid just because it's weird. But it's nice if it's on paper and written down with words. It's nice if it's signed at the end and witnessed. It makes it a little bit easier for us. That's a little bit more useful. It's nice if it's communicated to your family. Having a will doesn't make you die sooner. Some people seem nervous about that. And it's an act of love to your family to tell them what you want and how you want it. So we encourage people to do that. And that's pretty much what we can do to help protect what you have. And we're happy to answer any of your questions as well. And that's pretty much it for us. I mean, anything we can do to help, we're certainly happy to do that.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Sure. So Karen Tinney is next. Karen is the Deputy Director at the Area Agency on Aging and is in charge of long-term care services, and she'll be talking about the services of the AAA. Karen, thank you.
Thanks, boss. How are you doing over there? Most stressful morning. I'm waving from the other side of the hall. And Linda, I just wrote my will down on a sticky note. Does that count? So I am here just to talk a little bit about the AAA services, and especially the protective services that we have here in Bucks County. Not sure where everybody is from, so I just want to say that I am talking on behalf of Bucks County Area Agency on Aging, but it's also important to realize that there are 52 area agencies on aging in the 67 counties of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. AAAs were formed back in 1973 as part of the Older Americans Act. And if anybody ever thought about living in a nursing home, people back then were like, I don't want to go to a nursing home. So an Older Americans Act really set up supports in the community so that people can age in place. So we have supports for in-home services, personal care, home-delivered meals, caregiver support program. and a range of different things that'll help you or your loved ones stay in their home rather than go into a nursing home or personal care home. However, I've seen a lot of those personal care homes, and they look really nice. I don't think I'm going to be able to afford it on a county pension one day, but they do look kind of really pretty. One of my first jobs out of social work school was working in a county nursing home where there was 6 residents to each room at some times, with a nurse staff ratio of 1 to 25. So I really appreciate that our lawmakers back then who formed the AAAs. So let me just get into protective services a little bit. Right here in the Area and Agency on Aging in Bucks, we have 3 protective services supervisors and 12 protective services investigators who are supported by the agency, but also supported by a team of our information and referral specialists who take reports of need from community members, a concerned neighbor, like, if they notice that the trash is building up, or if their lawn hasn't been mowed in weeks. A lot of times we'll get calls and say, I'm really worried about my neighbor, I haven't seen anybody. I'd like to make a report on them. We get calls from hospitals, we get calls from nursing homes, lots of calls from personal care homes. Some of these callers are mandated, and some of these callers are voluntary. But with the investigation, once we get these reports and our care managers work with you to get out the most details as possible, we will decide at that point in time if it is something that we should go out and investigate. We have time frames within to start the investigation, depending on what's in the report. Most reports, I think, lately we've been starting within 24 hours. So our investigators go up and down the entire county, looking into the validity of what the reporter has been saying. We get reports. We go out on, I always say that we're jack of all trades and experts in all, because I really value the work of our protective services staff. We get reports in abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. We get reports and investigate self-neglect. Somebody just has stopped caring for themselves. They're not taking their medication. They're not paying their bills. The water's been turned off. There's holes in the ceilings and the floors. And we get reports for caregiver neglect, where there's a assumed responsible caregiver who has not necessarily been keeping up with what their responsibilities are. And that could be family members, and that could be the nursing home itself, the personal care home itself. So our investigators go out on a regular basis, and they seek to understand what's going on in the situation. We often see lots of family dynamics that we have to pull apart and try to figure out, is there abuse there, and what's our role in this? And after some time, we go out and figure out if it's substantiated abuse or it's not substantiated. If it's substantiated, oftentimes, we'll have to present a plan of care and work with that individual, that older adult, to mitigate that risk and create a plan of safety. It's interesting. I find that, one will get an 88-year-old who has not taken care of themselves in their lifetimes, and we'll try to put into a plan that's a 30-day plan to fix their entire quality of life. We have supports and services here at the AAA that we will, once the risk is mitigated, we will stop the investigation and move forward and hand it off to another department. We've had the oddest interventions, just like providing groceries and setting up with food, and sometimes they're often doing getting somebody into Medicaid, because that is an impossibly long process. But it is what we have to do, and we work with Orphans, Clerk a couple of times a year to seek out guardianships for people who are just not able to care for themselves anymore because they've been declared an incapacitated person. So that's just a little bit on protective services. As Cassie said, speak on behalf of the AAAs. We provide caregiver support services. We house the Ombuds program that you heard earlier in the keynote speaker's address, where we go out and look into investigations of quality of life issues in nursing homes. We have right now, it's really ramping up, is Medicare counseling in the PA Medi program. I laugh because it's a new name I still have not gotten used to saying. Used to be the Apprise program. And we also have, health and wellness programs to prevent people from getting sick. They're managing their chronic diseases, helps with fall prevention. And our AAA also contracts with the 13 senior centers in Bucks County. And each AAA does it a little bit differently, but we provide funding and support to these centers, which help people keep them in the community as well. Socialization, bingo, chicken, and dating services. I often find, somebody who's walking into a senior center, especially a male with 30 females, they often will come out with a date on the other side. So we run the gamut of what we can be doing, and we're constantly looking for new and improved ways of supporting the community. I am happy to take any questions that you might have about the AAAs or protective services and how we work with everybody here, but I'll also put the national or the Pennsylvania Protective Services Hotline in the comments, our protective services hotlines, and then our main line, just to get questions answered. And that is it for me.
Thank you, Karen. Excellent job.
Thanks.
I made such a great decision hiring you, let me tell you. Okay. So I think I have gotten everyone. Did I miss anybody of our task force? And if I have, I am so sorry. But did I miss anybody? Okay, great. I think that you all get a sense that we work together pretty closely. We've formed, one of the main reasons that we developed the task force was to really work on relationships with each other so that we knew we could call each other, find out what each other does and how we could help one another. And I think you get a sense that we really do that. I mean, we lean on each other to say, boy, I don't know how to handle this, or what am I going to do about something or others. It's great to have this task force of experts who can work together to see what we can do to try and enhance the eradication of elder abuse in our county and to hold offenders accountable. I did post on the chat what our website, because it also lists for the task force. It's it's on the Bucks County website. It's one of the pages. So I put that on there for you. I have to say that I am shocked and amazed, but very pleased that all of our task force members kept to like 5 minutes or so each, because we now have plenty of time for questions. I've been trying to to check on the chat and see what questions we have. So I'm going to start back what I think is one of the first ones, and we'll go from there. Hang on a second, just lost it. So the first question was, I'm curious to know if the owner of a personal care boarding home is legally allowed to have a rep payee status for those using their services. I'm not sure who's the best person to answer that, so I'm hoping that one of you will be able to answer that. So again, if the owner of a personal care boarding home is legally allowed to have rep payee status for those using their services.
Kathy, I guess I'll jump in. I've never thought about that basic question, but I believe so. And the reason I think that is because many of the cases that we've prosecuted involving personal care homes, that's precisely the situation that we have. We have the owner and operator of the personal care home being the rep payee for the residents. And then, basically in the cases that we've prosecuted, either completely neglecting or actually abusing the residents. So I believe so. I don't know. Maybe I should look at that. I think it's fairly common. Because
and it's legal.
What happens is that's the mechanism for payment. I mean, a lot of folks who are in personal care homes may not have other means, and so the owners will say, okay, well, I'll tell you what, you make me your rep payee, and then we'll provide services to you in exchange for all of your Social Security benefits.
Yeah, I would just echo. I agree, Dave. I mean, I did do a lot of Social Security appeals, but I never faced that particular issue. But as you well know, that's all governed by the regulations under the Social Security Act. So that is federal law. It's federal regulations. It's an administrative body of law, and I don't know of anything that prohibits that. I would just, of course, say that just because it's legal doesn't mean it's ethical.
Great, thank you. This is a question specifically for you, AJ. Has the Bucks County DA's office educated local nursing homes on the Elder Justice Act requirements regarding the reporting of a reasonable, quote unquote, suspicion of a crime against a resident, and how are those reports being handled by local law enforcement? Thank you.
David, you may be able to help me out with this. I believe that the Elder Justice Act is a federal law. And what the questioner, I guess, is getting at is there's a mandatory reporting requirement for reasonable suspicion of abuse. And I believe the penalties are civil, so we're not really involved with necessarily the Elder Justice Act. What I can say is that we do take complaints on a regular basis from nursing homes and long-term care facilities, and basically the process, it goes to area agency on aging. They get reports that, someone has not been paying their bills and there may be some financial exploitation, or that there's been some sort of abuse that's going on. So usually the reporting goes to them, and then it comes to our office, and we follow up on those investigations. But specifically about the Elder Justice Act, I think that would be more on the federal side than it is with our office in particular.
Yeah. So I guess just to follow up on that, it is a federal statute. I think what Dave Hoffman was asking about was there's an element of the statute which requires reporting to local law enforcement as well as HHS on the federal side of any suspected crime against a nursing home resident. I'm obviously, we're not involved in the local reporting, but I don't know if AJ, you have any other comments about that, the mechanism for reporting to local law enforcement suspected crimes.
Right. So you would report it either to the local police jurisdiction where the crime is occurring. I can say that we generally don't have too many problems with long-term care facilities reporting, because generally what happens is the victims have not been paying their bills, and they want to report it, not only because they care for the victim, because they're racking up thousands of dollars of bills, and it's a problem for everybody. So we generally have not seen a problem with facilities reporting instances of financial abuse, and we do investigate those cases on a regular basis. So
great, thank you guys. And if anybody has a follow-up question on that, just go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll get to that. I do have the next question is for Mike Bannon. A significant portion of our fraud cases involves our customers providing remote access of their computers to scammers. They then log on to their online banking, the scammer takes over, transfers money, etc. We have procedures for handling these cases, which includes educating the consumer. I have not been able to find educational materials about remote access scams. Have you, whoops, my thing's just flipped. I guess they're looking for, I'm sorry, my thing just flipped.
No problem. So I think I got the gist of it. Great question. So thank you for asking. Good question. I think what we're talking about here is what I call the computer repair scam, or the Microsoft scam. And it's where somebody gets contacted, typically a senior citizen, saying that they either via email pops up on pop up on their screen saying you're having problems with your computer. Call this phone number if it's running slow. And many seniors are having problems with their computers. I have problems with my computer all the time.
We haven't had any problems here today.
That's right. So that goes to show you. So everybody has problems with computers. And so it's a great scam because people say, well, yeah, I am having problems. My computer is running kind of slow. And then the victim will call the number or contact via email. And the fraudster will then say, okay, I need you to go to a website. And that's part of the scam. I don't have information about just going to the website. It wraps into the overall computer repair scam. And we do have some information on that, that we share. I have brochures and different handouts that we can get to anybody out there about this particular scam. But it works very well. And if I could share with you it, my parents are not going to be happy with what I'm about to say here, but my elderly parents in their 90s got a phone call, and my parents are, I like to think, very with it for their 90s and in good shape, got a phone call that there was a problem with their computer, and they always have problems with their computer. So unfortunately, they fell for the scam, and the scam artist asked them, said, okay, at some point said, can I get your credit card for the services because there's going to be a fee of like $75. And sadly, my mother gave him the credit card number over the phone. And then the scammer did something that I was surprised at. He said, that credit card, for some reason, the transaction isn't working. And what you need to do is give us another credit card. So in fact, they gave him two credit cards for that particular scam. And of course, the scam artist, it was in 15 minutes, they had charged up thousands of dollars worth of stuff on my parents' credit cards. But they also did ask them to go to a website and to log on to the website. And these websites that share access to the computer are legitimate. Many legitimate computer repair companies use these sites to tie into your computer so they can repair it legitimately from long distance. So it's hard to control that. First, I was like, well, why would you even want to let anybody into your computer? But there is a legitimate use for it. But it certainly is a tricky scam. And then just to clarify on my parents' situation, when I called my parents up and my mother, I said, how's everything going? And she said, great. Jeff, we're having a little computer problem, but a guy just called me and said, so I was able to go in and reverse what had happened in there. It was a flat out scam, but it affects everybody, that's for sure. So I do have information after that long-winded answer. I have stuff that I can get to you or the Consumer Protection has about the computer repair scam, not specifically about those sites that the scammers use to get to folks.
Great. Thank you. I don't know if you've ever gone into the Consumer Protection Office. I think 5 walls of their 4 walls are filled with all kinds of materials and information. They have great stuff there. So thank you for that, Mike.
Thank you, Kathy.
Linda, there's a question for you that had to do with, there's a couple questions about wills. And where did it go? I can't find it, but the question was, is LegalZoom okay to use that for wills?
There were
creating wills?
I think there were 2 questions. One was about LegalZoom and one was about how many witnesses, so they're kind of related. So LegalZoom can be a good source. We were just looking up the site to see what they say about wills on there, and you just have to be careful because we were looking it up and it says that you don't need any witnesses in Pennsylvania, which is actually not correct. So you have to be careful on any online site. So Pennsylvania does require a couple of things. You have to sign it at the bottom, and you need 2 witnesses in order to have a legal will in Pennsylvania. In addition, you have to have what's called an attestation clause for it to be what we refer to as self-proving. So then you have this attestation clause, which also has to be signed by the testator, the decedent, and 2 witnesses. And that way, when that will comes in, you don't have to do anything else. We can accept it into probate. So that's the requirement in Pennsylvania. So if you have a will from LegalZoom and you do all those things, we will accept that will. Now, if you bring that will in and you don't have all those signatures, we can still use that will, but we're going to make the person who brings that will in get affidavits and go through a whole process to make that will acceptable. So the will still may be valid if you use that LegalZoom will, but there's a number of steps the person who brings that will in is going to have to go through for that will to be probated. So it gets a little more complicated. We still may be able to use it, but there's a number of steps that are going to have to happen. So that's why going to a lawyer, as much as some people don't want to have to pay the money to do that, might be worthwhile, because you're going to pay a few bucks up front, but you may not have to have your family run around and do a whole lot of steps later on. So, but LegalZoom generally, it has certain forms that you can use. Getting a little bit of information up front is probably going to benefit you, and you probably can use a will from there.
And Linda, a question just came in. Does the will need to be notarized?
Yes.
So even the napkin needs to be notarized?
I don't believe the napkin was notarized, as I recall. So, but again, we took the napkin. It was a valid will, but the family did have to go through a few more steps to make it work.
So, Brendan, you put in that senior law will draft wills and planning documents for any victims of elder abuse. So that's another resource when we're talking about wills. Okay.
I didn't say all of our services are free. We're a nonprofit, so no one ever pays for our service.
But you only help with wills for those that are victims of elder abuse? Is that?
Yeah, so if someone's, they need to change the will, right, because it was a bad actor or something like that. Anything that can be connected to some sort of abuse, that then the funding, which is federal funding, allows us to do that.
Great. Thank you, Brendan. Mike, there's just a comment, but I don't know if you have any other thoughts, but the scammers are now in posing as Amazon, utilities companies, et cetera, saying their customers are owed a refund.
Well, it's a continuation of the telephone scams that are lots of folks. Amazon has certainly been a problem lately for folks getting phone calls. I strongly suggest that if you can sign up for the No-Mo Robo site, which I have been signed up for many years. I'll put it in the chat room for there. And what that does is when it has identified scam phone numbers that calls your house, it disconnects it after one ring when it comes to your house, and it really helps slow down the calls. There's no way to stop them, unfortunately, completely. But by not answering the telephone calls, by not having conversations with anybody at that matter, letting your answering machine do the work, and signing up for No More Robo, you can reduce the amount of calls that come. Unfortunately, I don't know how to stop them, and I'm very disappointed, as I always have been for years, with the telecommunication companies. It's still my belief, and I advocate that the telecommunication companies can do a lot more than they're doing right now when it comes to scam phone calls. And I'm even more upset that just recently these phone companies or wireless phone companies are now offering a pay service to stop. You could pay for your smartphone like $2, $3 a month, $4 a month to stop scam phone calls. That's outrageous to me that they're charging for that when it should be a free service, and they should be doing more to monitor it anyway. But sadly, no more robo. Don't answer the phone calls as best you can from what you don't know. And if you have seniors out there that are suffering from these many phone calls, you can tell them to call our office, and we will try to talk them through it and say sign up for this and help them. So we can even hopefully just reason with some folks sometimes and explain why not to answer the phone and deal with these scam artists.
Thank you, Mike.
Good.
So there's a couple questions about sending an email with all of the resources mentioned today. I have to ask Holly Tuttle about that, how we would do that, but I will ask her. This is being recorded, so we have the information that we could send out. And I did, again, put in the Crimes Against Older Adults Task Force website that has a number of these contact informations in there and some of the resources we've been discussing about. But yes, so I will try and see if we can do that. There's a question, Brendan, specifically for you. When I contacted Senior Law for help regarding financial abuse against my father in long-term care with dementia, they told me they could only help the abused senior directly and therefore could not help me as the concerned family member. But my father was oblivious of the abuse. Is that correct?
So it's a very difficult situation. We have to presume, unfortunately, that a person may not be well-intentioned, because that's unfortunately what turns out most of the time. So the policy that we have is we don't speak to third parties directly. If you are actually a agent under a power of attorney for your father, then we would have asked, or we would ask, if you could send the documents to us, that we would review them, make sure they were valid, in which case we could. The problem with talking to a third party is that the client is not the third party. The client is the senior themselves, right? So there are going to be cases where the person's not able to articulate what's going on. And then we have questions of legal capacity. As lawyers, we're ethically bound to make sure that a client has what we call legal capacity. It's not a bright line standard. It's not a bright rule. It's a sort of a spectrum. So we have, unfortunately, because of our history of being burned and unwittingly playing a part in exploitation of seniors, it's a very firm policy of ours that we will only speak with the client directly. Now, that's not to say, for example, if the person had some trouble with memory or something, that we could do a three-way phone call, but we would have to always speak with the client, because we never know if the person calling really has good motives or intentions. And it's a very sad situation. Many of our attorneys are very unhappy about that. It's very frustrating for us, and it can be certainly frustrating for a family member. But we are, lawyers, and we are bound by ethical rules. So we can't give advice about somebody's situation to a third party unless they have a valid power of attorney. I don't know if that answers your question, and I understand the frustration that comes with that. But we have to speak with the person themselves. And if the capacity is not there at all for any reason, then, if there was a physical abuse or something, we would, of course, we recommended that you report it to the police and to the district attorney and to the AAA and all of those kinds of things. So there's lots of different ways that you can get support for that. But when it comes to the actual legal relationship, it has to be with the senior themselves.
Thank you, Brendan. Linda, you put in a clarification that the attestation clause of the will is what needs to be notarized. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I see in the chat.